Good evening and welcome. Tonight, we begin with a major escalation in tensions between the United States and Iran after U.S. forces launched retaliatory strikes following the downing of an American Apache attack helicopter near the Strait of Hormuz. The incident has raised fears of a broader regional conflict and has drawn concern from governments around the world. According to U.S. officials, the AH-64 Apache helicopter was conducting patrol operations near the strategic waterway when it was struck and brought down. The two crew members survived and were rescued in a dramatic operation involving American military assets. U.S. Central Command later described the incident as an act of aggression that required a response. President Donald Trump stated that Iran was responsible for the helicopter's loss and said the United States would respond with what he called a strong and proportional action. Shortly afterward, U.S. military forces launched a series of strikes against Iranian military targets. American officials said the attacks focused on radar installations, air defense systems, and ground control facilities associated with operations around the Strait of Hormuz. Military sources reported that nearly 20 targets were struck during the operation. The Pentagon described the action as a defensive measure intended to deter further attacks on U.S. forces and maritime traffic in the region. Officials emphasized that the strikes were not aimed at triggering a wider war, but at responding to what they viewed as a direct threat. Iran, however, condemned the attacks and vowed to defend its interests. Iranian officials warned that foreign military forces operating near Iranian territory remain at risk and accused Washington of increasing instability in the Gulf region. In the hours following the American strikes, reports emerged of Iranian drone and missile attacks targeting U.S. military facilities in several neighboring countries, signaling a dangerous cycle of retaliation. The confrontation comes at a sensitive moment, as diplomatic efforts to ease tensions between Washington and Tehran have been ongoing for months. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance said negotiations could continue but acknowledged that reaching a lasting agreement may take weeks or even months. Analysts warned that the latest exchange of strikes could make diplomacy far more difficult. The economic impact is already being felt. Global markets reacted nervously to the escalation, with investors closely watching developments around the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most important routes for oil shipments. Concerns about potential disruptions to energy supplies contributed to rising oil prices and declines in several Gulf stock markets. International leaders are urging restraint. Many governments have called on both sides to avoid further military action and return to negotiations before the situation spirals into a larger conflict that could affect security and trade throughout the Middle East and beyond. For now, military forces across the region remain on heightened alert, and the world is watching closely to see whether the latest confrontation leads to renewed diplomacy or further escalation. That's all for this report. I'm your news presenter. Thank you for watching, and good night.